Yo, what's poppin' everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Zach Lesage here. Today we're going to be covering over the best decks in the Twilight Masquerade format. Cups, challenges, locals have all been going on. We're so close to the Shrouded Fable format, but we still have cups and challenges and all these events that are in our Twilight Masquerade format. As you get towards the end, we have some really refined lists, so if you're looking for that next deck to help you get some championship points, or even just get ready for the next season, this video is really going to be for you. I'll be covering over all the deck lists for the top 10 decks, and of course the lists are going to be available in the pinned comment below, so check that out in the comment section if you want to copy and paste any of those decks into TCG Live. There's a lot of ground to cover today, so I don't want to hold up anyone, but if you do want to kind of play along with the video, put your best guess for the top 10 decks in the comments and we'll go from there. That being said, let's check out our number 10 pick. Kicking things off, we have Snorlax Control. Now, Snorlax is no stranger to being in the top 10, but it is kind of hanging on by a thread. A lot of people don't like playing Snorlax in best of one because you do have to play the deck quite quick, and unfortunately, if your opponent doesn't necessarily know what to do against a Snorlax deck, you might not be able to finish out your games. There's also a lot of opportunities where they can Iono you, or 30 minutes is just not a lot of time to really complete with Snorlax. Snorlax's main strategy in best of 3 is going to have kind of a longer game one where you kind of play out maybe around the 40-minute mark. Your opponent doesn't have an opportunity to win game 2, so instead of the game being a tie, that's how you're able to advance. You have to take really 10 minutes less of that to play in best of 1, which sometimes isn't enough. However, I've seen enough success with Snorlax. This build doesn't really have an answer to Lugia decks in our formats. That's one of the things that we've seen where some lists have those Temple of Sinnohs, some lists do not. In a lot of cases, this Snorlax list is going to be very polarizing in some matchups. Sure, you're probably going to lose to Lugia, but if you hit into some Charizards, maybe some Dragapults, some Raging Bullets, you might have a good chance to see success at Snorlax. I don't think there's too much that's special about this list. A lot of these decks have been pretty well discovered at this point. Really, the newest add is going to be Accompanying Flute to this deck, where you're able to bring Pokemon down from the top of your opponent's deck, try to get lucky, and put those onto your opponent's bench. Cards like those could be Radiant Greninja, Lumineon, Rotom, Pokemon that can't really attack in most decks. And then, of course, you Snorlax, bring them up and block them so they cannot retreat. I think Snorlax is an interesting pick. Certainly not a deck that's going to make everyone your best friends, but it is a very successful deck when you're able to pilot it correctly. Let's jump into our number 9 pick. Sliding into number 9 is going to be Ancient Box. Now, Ancient Box is the deck that I piloted to the North American International Championships. I placed about top 100 out of 3,000 competitors, and this deck's kind of been off on its own, really growing since then. It went from being like barely a top 20 deck to really being within the top 10 towards the lower bottom half. Having a strong matchup against decks such as Gardevoir, Raging Bolt, and a handful of other decks, I really think that Roaring Moon is kind of a really viable option that a lot of people haven't given it credit for. Beyond the Earthen Vessel is one of the cheapest decks and formats to play, and your goal is really going to be using Vengeance Fletching over and over, discarding ancient cards from your hand into your discard pile. We can accelerate our energies with Professor Zeta's Vitality, and of course I've spiced this deck up by adding in a copy of Kieran and Penny along with Pal Pad, so if you do run into a pesky deck like Snorlax, you do have the opportunities to get out of those situations as well. One of the biggest debates in this deck is going to be, should you play Secret Box? Should you play Awakening Drum? Should you play another Ace spec? Well, let me know what you think about it in the comments, but right now, Secret Box I really think is the best ace spec in this deck because it allows you to discard quite a few clutter cards in your hand. We're not necessarily going to be playing it turn 1, but you could, and it's great to knock or discard those Walking Wake, Ancient Booster Energy Capsules, Extra Explorer Guidance to continuously go on with the strategy. Sure, Awakening Drum does add +1 to our overall Ancient count, but Secret Box could really search out a counter catcher, draw an extra prize card, maybe by bringing up a Pokemon that's worth 2 prizes on our bench, like our opponent's Lumineon, grab our supporter, discard a bunch of cards from our hand, and really allow for an explosive turn. If you need any of the cards for this deck or any of the decks in this video, be sure to check out our sponsors in our description, such as Kayfabe Cards, PTCGL Store, and our own Shuffle Squad website. We have access to a lot of cards there and along discounts that ship globally, so be sure to check those out. Let's jump into our number 8. Moving on to our number 8 pick, we have Chien-pao EX with Baxcalibur, one of the most consistent decks in format once it sets up. I think it's really one of those games where you're honestly trying to go Shivery Chill, load up energies, power them up with Baxcalibur because you have unlimited energy acceleration, draw cards with the barrel. If you get to that stage in the game, you're usually taking 2 prize cards per turn, whether you're knocking out a 2 prizer with Hail Blade, you're knocking out 2 single prizers with Radiant Greninja, or you're forcing your opponent to draw, drawing an extra prize with Iron Hands EX. So we have a lot of ways to really force our opponent into these tough situations. If you get to that point, I think the problem is getting to that point, sequencing this deck properly to get to that point, and of course, understanding our limited resources when it comes to this deck. One card that I've added back into this deck is Silene, which could be quite helpful against decks that you might want to use Canceling Clone against, or Prime Catcher, just to really have yourself a few more opportunities. Codebreaker's Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking is really one of those cards where I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of unless I'm using it once per game. I think when the deck had 2, I wasn't necessarily using it as much as I'd wanted to, whereas Silene has been quite helpful for me to get back some of my resources. So that's really the big change that I've made. This is a deck that I've been thinking about a lot lately about. The same way that I was thinking about Iron Thorns before I played it at a league challenge before I won that league challenge. So Chien-pao is probably a deck that you'll see me play at a local event before Shrouded Fable comes out. Not entirely sure when, but if the metagame kind of feels like the right moment to play this deck, I think Chien-pao could easily be one of the best decks in format. What deck do you think is going to be at number 7? If you haven't already let me know in the comment section below. Headbutting its way into number 7 is going to be Dragapult EX, and this time it's going to be joined with Pidgeot EX and Charizard EX. This is another deck that I brought to a first place at a league challenge in the past week, so you know it's tried, true, fresh, crispy, and of course I have my own personal list here to share with you. The goal of this deck is to use Phantom Dive in most games to do 200 damage to your opponent's active and 6 damage counters wherever you like. We have a lot of ways to kind of set up these multi-turn knockouts by going 200, placing it so you can knock something else on the bench, and really trying to draw a large amount of prize cards at once. One of the reasons why we have Charizard EX in this deck is because we're able to accelerate energies to our Pokemon, such as Dragapult EX, if you miss an energy attachment. Further to amplify that is going to be Neo Upper Energy, giving yourself an opportunity just to slap it on a Dragapult EX. You could search it with Pidgeot EX, no problem. And now you're able to do 206 damage counters wherever you like. And if that's not enough, you could slap it on either a Pidgeot or a Charizard EX to make sure that you're able to attack with either one if you're running low on energies. We have a handful of different techs that we have in here, such as Professor Turo, Kieran, all these cards that we could search out with Pidgeot. And you might be like, okay, Zach, there's 3 stage 2s in this deck. I think you cooked a little too hard. And sometimes it feels like that. A lot of the time you're able to get out a Dragapult turn 2 or a Charizard turn 2. Charizard gives you an opportunity against some of the more aggressive decks like Raging Bull and Gouging Fire, whereas Dragapult is quite strong against decks such as Gardevoir, and of course decks like Lost Zone Box, some of the single prize card decks. Pidgeot's really the in-between blend that allows you to search things out, but it's not always going to be a necessity. You could always evolve things like Dracoloak on the bench, so we're not as reliant on rare candy. So even if your opponent plays something like Technical Machine De-Evolution, we still want to make sure that we have some rare candies left over just in case. Get yourself set up for success when it comes down to it, and really this deck's kind of create your own strategy. Play it to however you're approaching the matchup and whatever your hand leans towards. What do you think is going to be at our number 6? I'm excited to jump into it. Let's find out. Sliding into number 6 is going to be Charizard EX with Pidgeot EX. So you might be like, how is this different than our other deck that we just featured that had Charizard and Pidgeot? Well, the lack of Dragapult gives us a little bit more opportunities to tech this deck out. So we are more of a pure Charizard EX deck. We're able to use Burning Darkness, Accelerate Energies, and get ourselves set up. We have that way to continuously increase our damage with Burning Darkness throughout the game. And of course, we have other damage modifiers in this list, such as Defiance Band and of course, Kieran. Pidgeot EX is going to be the glue that holds this deck together to make sure that we're able to get those key supporter cards, those key tech cards, on a turn-by-turn basis, so we could Roxanne our opponent into nothing and play a counter catcher and play that jamming tower. You have some huge explosive turns in this defensive way of playing Charizard, or reactive way of playing Charizard. We got Bibarel just in case we don't necessarily always have it, and it's a single prize card version of a draw engine, so we have ways to make our deck as consistent as possible. So we get a lot of opportunities to be a very teched out deck that can hold a lot of different matchups. And of course, we have it a little bit more specialized towards Charizard than having Dragapult and Pidgeot, which can be a little bit more inconsistent, reasoning why it's at number 7 and not number 6 like pure Charizard EX. Matchup spread's a little bit different between both. However, I do think that Charizard EX is really a staple towards our format, and this is a build that I took to a top 8 of a fairly large Montreal League Cup. I faced a lot of different matchups, a lot of top players, and I was able to make top 8, lost in top 8 in a heartbreaking game 3. Being said, I think Charizard's a fantastic pick right now until we see Shrouded Fable, where Charizard becomes an even better deck. So if you're looking for an opportunity to play a really solid deck in this format that can get better with time, Charizard is certainly that deck. We're almost at the halfway point, so remember to check out the pinned comment with all of the lists available in it for copy and paste right into PTCG Live. At the halfway point, we have Lost Zone Box, and Lost Zone Box is really going to be based off the list that Andrew Hedrick played towards the 2024 North American International Championships. I think I changed one card where I cut a Pokestop for a Pokegear, just to give myself more opportunities to maybe get into a Boss's Orders or Roxanne. Might be a card that I switched instead of that. However, I think that the list is like 59 out of 60 cards, and it's more of a personal preference on my side. The goal of this deck is really going to be getting cards into the Lost Zone with Comfey's Flower Selecting ability, Chorus's Experiments, Lost Vacuum, and we're able to then use Cramorant when we're at 4 in the Lost Zone to do its attacks for free. We also have access to our Mirage Gates once we get to 7 to accelerate energies to our variety of Pokemon, and then once we get to 10 we have access to Sableye. We have a lot of opportunities to really be a single prize card deck, a 2 prize card deck, drawing multiple prize cards, and really setting up some interesting board states just through the pure capabilities of playing well. Arguably one of the most technical, if not the most technical deck on this list, which might be one of the reasons why it falls towards the middle of the list. It is incredibly well positioned in most metagames, and most decks do not have a great answer against Lost Zone Box. It's more like, we will deal with it when we deal with it. So Lost Zone Box is a fantastic choice if you're looking to kind of increase your skill level, also making sure that you're able to have a solid deck at any given point. There's not really much that I would change with this deck because Andrew's list that he won NEIC with is clearly close to perfect. Really, the list is where it's at for a reason. I would probably keep it as such. The next 4 decks are going to be decks that you're going to see almost everywhere at your locals, cups, challenges, whatever. So let's see what we got cooking in this list. At number 4, we have Lugia V-Star with Archeops. And this build, I'm going to go with the Cinccino version. While they're not necessarily placed super highly on this list, being at number 6 and number 7, both Dragapult EX and Charizard EX have a little bit more of a meta share than some of these other decks on this list. So the way that Lugia is kind of going forward, or the way that it's been presented to myself and through my own studying and stuff like that of the metagame, I'm just babbling on at this point. Cinccino is better against stage 2 Pokemon EX on average. The Lugia basics, where you might see Weirdeer, Wellspring Mask, Double Iron Hands, the Alex Szymanski list or NEIC, that list is better against the rest of the metagame. So if you see that you're going to be facing stage 2 Pokemon EX decks, go for the Cinccino build because that's more of a catch-all approach and it's better against those stage 2 Pokemon EX decks. If your metagame is more aggressive, like with the Raging Bolts and maybe even just Gardevoirs and stuff like that, go for the Lugia without Cinccino builds. And I've covered both on this channel. I'm probably going to cover a Lugia, just no Cinccino build in the future, so you can kind of learn a little bit more about that. Right now, that's the build. We're going to be Accelerate Energies with Archeops. We get Archeops out by summoning Archeops with Lugia V-Star, discard them, summon them, Accelerate Energies, and really were able to attack over and over and over again with Chinchino or other Pokemon such as Iron Hands EX. This is a deck that brought me, I want to say 3 or 4 day 2s last season, so it's a deck that I'm passionate about. It's a deck that's probably good in our Shrouded Fables metagame as well, so be sure to give the deck a try out as you continue to explore our metagame. But right now, I think Lugia is a very good choice for Cups and Challenges, as long as you're able to get set up and really start rolling with that deck. The first of the big 3 is going to be Raging Bolt EX. Now, Raging Bolt EX is a deck that kind of got memed on when it first came out in Temporal Forces, and now it's getting a little bit more respect when it's clearly the number 3 deck. Twilight Masquerade Ogerpon really allowed this deck to kind of run where it didn't have an opportunity to, and being able to accelerate a bunch of energies, blow up all those energies, and knock things out at 70 damage per. We're a very quick and aggressive deck, and get a little bit more aggressive with the addition of Pokemon Catcher in this deck. Get a lucky coin flip once or twice in a game, and you're probably winning against most decks in the format. There are very few decks that stop Raging Bull EX, and if they do, they might not necessarily be able to keep up with the pure speed and consistency of this list. So give this deck a try. I think it's one of those things where if you like playing easier to play decks because we're just loading up energies and we're attacking, great for a new player, great to get those first championship points, but you're also able to master the sequencing of cards like, should you play Nestball, Pokegear, Earthen Vessel, in which order? Which way should you add Radiant Greninja into that mix? There's a lot of really cool little things that you can do with Raging Bolt, especially when it comes down to the Pokemon that you're able to target between Boss's Orders and Prime Catcher and Pokemon Catcher. I think that it's really one of those interesting decks that's going to be good for a while. So if you haven't invested in the cards already, 100% invest in some of these cards. I know Teal Mask Ogerpon and Earthen Vessels might be a little bit more expensive, but there's a lot of crossover when it comes to these lists and other decks that you might see in the future. Do you like Raging Bolt? Do you think Raging Bolt deserves its number 3 pick? Is there any changes that you'd make to this list? I think the list is pretty stock right now. I've seen some lists that play trekking shoes. Beyond that, I don't really think there's too much else that's changing beyond a few of the item counts that, again, is more of a personal preference. At our number 2 spot and our runner-up for the top 10 best decks of the week is going to be Regidrago V-Star. And the list that I've decided to go with is Alberto Conti's list that he's been playing at a handful of League Cups. He said he's played a bunch of best of 3 League Cups. He's top 4'd them all, or top cut them all, and really it looks like a super solid list. In terms of the strategy, we're going to be using Apex Dragon to copy dragon type Pokemon that are in your discard pile, giving yourself an opportunity to copy some powerful attacks like Dragapult EX that we featured previously on this list, Giratina V-Star because you're able to go 280 damage, and of course Hisuian Gudra V-Star to reduce damage from your opponent's Pokemon. You could also copy Regidrago V if you really want to, and a lot of the ways that we can power this deck up is going to be with Twilight Masquerade Ogerpon using Energy Switch and attaching for our turn. So we're trying to go Energy Switch, Energy Switch, Energy to power up a Regidrago V-Star from nothing. We can make that happen a lot easier thanks to Legacy Star ability, allowing you to pitch the top 7 cards of your deck and going through your discard pile, grabbing any 2 cards you want. One thing that has recently changed about this deck, you have to pitch some cards with Legacy Star in order to use the ability. So if you have 0 cards in deck, you are not able to use Legacy Star with updated ruling, just in case you're a Regidrago player and you're like, something's a little bit different. Jumping into some of the tech cards that we have here, Hawlucha gives us some interesting options to then go 70 in combination with Dragapult. So instead of just playing 6 damage counters, we could put an extra one with Hawlucha, allowing us to knock out some Pokemon like Charmander that have 70 HP. Thornton does give you some opportunities to kind of turn your Pokemon into other Pokemon that might have not necessarily been there, allowing you to get a Regidrago V-Star out of nowhere, or getting different Pokemon like Radiant Charizard out in the mix whenever you need to. A lot of interesting gameplay here. I think Regidrago is clearly one of the best decks in this format, clearly one of the best decks in our next Shrouded Fable format, so it's a deck that's likewise, it's pretty worthwhile to invest in. We're at our point where we're at our number 1 deck. If you haven't guessed it already, I'm sure it's an easy guess. I'm excited to share it. Let's jump into it. Here you have it at number 1, Gardevoir EX. Now, the list that I use for this is going to be Gabriel Smart's list, if not very close to his list, that he was able to come second with at a gigantic League Cup in Utah. Now, Gardevoir EX is all about using its Psychic Embrace and accelerating energies from your discard pile and making sure that you place damage counters on your Pokemon. That normally sounds like a bad thing. However, when there's cards such as Screamtail and Drifloon that are based off the amount of damage that are on them, we have a lot of opportunities to do some big damage, and furthermore doing extra damage with Bravery Charm to make the most of those situations. What really breaks this deck in the Twilight Masquerade format is going to be Monkey Dory. That has perfect synergy with this Psychic-based deck because we're able to take the damage counters that we took from Gardevoir, heal off our Pokemon, and then put them onto our opponent's Pokemon. So at any point if we're damaged, or at any point if we damage ourselves, we have an opportunity to have damage modifiers, and of course ways to heal ourselves. If you're not able to knock out our opponent's Pokemon over and over again, they have ways to 100% heal, and if not, they also have ways to draw multiple prize cards per turn because they can spread that damage wherever they pretty much please. This build is incredibly powerful, having a lot of different gameplay mechanics, a lot of different Pokemon. When we look at it, there's Monkey Dory, Screamtail, Fluttermane, Drifloon, Klefki. You really can't prepare for them all. So in this case, you have a lot of things to really deal with on top of having to deal with Technical Machine de-evolution. I think that this teched out build looks like an absolutely perfect way to be playing Gardevoir right now. The deck is very figured out in our Twilight Masquerade format, so as we continue to go forward with decks like Gardevoir, this is probably going to be the default list until the end of the Twilight Masquerade formats. Do you agree with Gardevoir being number one? Do you have all the cards to play this deck? Either way, let me know in the comments. Check out the pinned comment to copy and paste this deck list right into PTCG Live, and be sure to check out our sponsors at Kayfabe Cards, at PTCGL Store, and of course the Shuffle Squad website to pick up any of your singles that you need. Let me close things out. And that's what we got going on for our video today. Hopefully you learned a lot more about the Pokemon metagame, how things might have shifted over the next week or so, and maybe we're gonna see how we got right. Maybe we're gonna see how we got it wrong. Let me know what you think about these top 10 decks, any decks that you might have included, or any decks that you might have excluded on this video. Really appreciate everyone for tuning in. I have a lot of great content getting ready. I know I'm getting ready for Worlds. So shout out to everyone who's watched. Shout out to all of our sponsors available in our description. I've been really enjoying the Advanced GG. I love the shaker too. It just looks really cool and retro. Guava Berry is my jam right now, so that's keeping me alive. And of course, I'm just playing League Cups, League Challenges in the Montreal area, enjoying life. So I'll catch up with all y'all later. Peace out and have a great one. Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content, watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.